Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome back to another episode of the Gentleman's Podcast. It is I, your host, Nas the Innovator. And look, I already know what some people thinking. I already talked to some people during the midst of time being gone. I know it's been a long time since the last recording. Um, I'm back. We back. But this episode right here is really like not even necessarily an explanation, but just like I can't disappear and not give a reasoning behind it. So, with that being said, welcome back to the Gentleman's Podcast. For real, for real, for real. Now, to get right into it, like you seen the title of the episode, it's really depending on how you look at it. But since the last recording, feeling like the last episode, feeling like a kid again, which was when we recorded that April 21st. Yeah, so since like April, after that day, I mean, because that was what, like WrestleMania or something, right? Yeah, so after April 21st, I felt the sense of, my energy changing, but not really in a good way. I felt myself going back to my old self in a multitude of ways, that it was just like I was able to live with it because it's me, but at the same time, it wasn't adding to the person that we know Nas to be today. It was more going back to the person we used to know Nas, and his actions and choices and words and things of that nature was all coming with that. So without really making it like a big announcement, I decided to take like a step back, and I kind of just put my neck back in my shell, on some turtle ish, how they be. But so I went into my solitude, and from there I came up. You know, I did a lot of thinking actually, and before we even really go further, the title of this episode is "In My Solitude," and when you look up the word solitude, it's going to say the state or situation of being lonely. Now, I must tell y'all, like, even though not being lonely, but the state or situation of being alone. Same thing as being lonely, basically. But I say that to say, you know, the connotation behind have the connotation of the word depends on how you want to perceive it. Solitude in this episode, in this case, has a positive connotation, which means peace. Negative connotation for the word lonely. I mean, for the word solitude might be loneliness. And this wasn't really that. Like we didn't preached over multiple times in the Gentleman's Podcast history that once you are able to, chill and catch a vibe in your own space without anybody being around or without having to be under any substance or anything, and then you should be okay to, just live and take your time as you please, you know? And connotation for anybody, who don't really know or need to freshen up on the memory, because I know this is something we learned like back in the day. And I'm not in school no more, but I know some of y'all still in school, or you probably just got out of school and stuff. So, just to kind of refresh it, the connotation is an idea or a feeling that a word invokes in addition to its literal or primary meaning, So, like when I say solitude, the state of or situation of being alone, is however you want to look at it. And like I said, this episode is in a positive connotation in a sense because, like I just said before I went to this part, while I was in my solitude, I started to be able to do a lot of thinking. So it just allowed me to share a piece of, my thinking with y'all, and we just kind of go from there, But throughout the throughout the midst of while I was in my solitude, I was starting to realize a lot of things. Really, just more about me, you know, and like my character and things of that nature, and how even if even in times of growth or things of that nature, we will become challenged with obstacles of continuously. That's something we already know, but I was being tested with obstacles that challenged my character in a way that to really see if the growth I've been doing was really substantial growth, or was it just like fog in a wind type of growth, like it was there for a certain amount of time, and then when the flames start coming, then the fog start going away, and stuff like it's an analogy. Like, please stick with me if y'all can, bro. But anyway, like, saying that to say, while I was in the midst of my solitude, I was thinking of, you know, I told multiple people during the time in my solitude, and because I've been, I want to clear this up also, because this episode, I've been in my solitude. I have still been in the world. So, like, me being in my solitude, even though I'm surrounded, I'm still alone, though, because it's like mentally I was in my solitude the whole time. I mean, I'm present in the day to day, I'm held kicking it with certain individuals and things of that nature, but mentally I was only really thinking about, not I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, I wasn't only really thinking about the podcast, but I was also thinking about my gaming and you know uh doing like other sorts of content, reactions, vlogs, and things of that nature. But then outside of that, it's also just been life things. Your boy turned 21. It's like, I didn't do a birthday episode. I didn't make it a big deal or nothing like that. Or it wasn't even necessarily just like, like just go disappear. It was just like a whole bunch of life things just kept going on in good and bad ways. But it's all good when you really look at it, but as it pertains to the podcast, the Gentleman's Podcast, we going through, I guess you could say, a rebrand. I wouldn't even really think of it as a rebrand. I think of it as an upgrade, because from day one, I always knew, even if I didn't even really believe it at the time or speak on it at the time, I always knew that the Gentleman's Podcast was going to be looked at and handled as more than just a podcast. So, with that being said, in the next couple of weeks, days, months. Now, I'm not gonna say years because that's insane, but next couple of weeks, days, months, um, we will be slowly shifting from the Gentleman's Podcast to the Gentleman's Solitude with Nas the Innovator. I don't know if I want to put with the Nas the Innovator in there because it's only one host. I don't need to clarify, that this is. I don't think I should have to clarify who you gonna be, who you coming to see, or what voice you gonna hear. Even though you're not only gonna hear my voice every time, we still gonna be like the basis of the Gentleman's Podcast is still gonna be the same. But like I've been promising, it's like I've been saying for like a year now, videos finna come back, and it's just gonna be like, it's gonna be more than the podcast. I've already put a lot of thought into it. I don't want to really go into depths because then it's gonna be like it take the surprise out of the rebrand, or maybe out of the upgrade. But you know, that's just that's just what it's gonna be. It's gonna go from the Gentleman's Podcast to the Gentleman's Solitude, and the whole idea is still the same. But small things like the logo, making a new intro, and recording areas for certain episodes and stuff. I know I said we gonna still. I don't know if we still gonna do the in the world stuff. Where we were recording outside and stuff. But because it's like now it's time to get more professional and lock back in. You feel me? I've been gone for what, damn near 3 months. It feel like. So it's just, there's different ways to look at all of these things. And still, in the midst of me even recording this episode right now, I'm still brainstorming ideas that could, that's going to benefit all us in the long run. But for those of you who don't know, the Gentleman's Podcast, the Gentleman's Podcast is a philosophical and sincere podcast, where the host, me, for a better lack of words, where I am always like giving a piece of myself and things of that nature. But I've also came to a realization that like not even, and I don't even want to say this in like a negative connotation, but like sometimes it could kind of boring to a point to where like even me, I'll just be like, I kind of be tuned out a little bit to even what I'm saying, and it's my words. I'm listening to me. You feel me like this? So, and even on the other aspect of that, I just be having so many ideas. So another thing, like with the Gentleman's Solitude, it's gonna be like I say, when I say more than a podcast, it's damn near gonna be like a TV show. For real, for real. If we really want to, how I'm thinking about it, you know. Of course I'm gonna tell y'all in due time, So don't just don't hold me to it because I'm holding myself to it, but don't just put a time limit on it because I'm not gonna disappear. I'm not disappearing again. I'm not disappearing again. But we gonna keep making and producing episodes under the Gentleman's Podcast name, and then when it's officially ready for the upgrade to happen and things of that nature, then you'll be able to see it on one random episode. And it's not gonna be random because if you follow the Gentleman's Podcast on Instagram, and I understand that not everybody got Instagram, so I gotta expand. Some people finding us on Facebook. I don't have a Facebook, so I don't know how the hell y'all find it on Facebook. Um, but I'll create a Twitter. I'll create a Facebook. Um, I'm trying to think of apps, what other social media apps we might. I don't know. When they come to me, it'll come to me. But I'm gonna create those other sources of media and other ways to connect with my audience, with y'all, with the family. Um, when we go through the upgrade already, we already done went through it. I feel like there's no point in me making accounts under the Gentleman's Podcast name and then I gotta go and change it all. Like, it makes sense, but at the same time, it don't. It's just saving extra work for me, Plus, I don't be on these apps like that anyway. It's really only Instagram and YouTube, so it's like, But the Gentleman's Podcast, which was a philosophical podcast to the world, and to many of y'all listening, I hope y'all was able to pick up a lot of lessons here and there. And still do, because you never stop learning. And as I'm learning, I'm not a gatekeeper of knowledge. I like to spread my knowledge. So like my like my best friend, I like to call it Nas knowledge. But she mean it in a whole different way. I'm changing the perception on that name too, because I like that name. But at the same time, it's just sometimes you just gotta be able to, when you're not feeling like yourself, you gotta take a step back and just be like, and do some reflecting. And sometimes it's not on other people. It's not, this ain't got nothing to do with, oh, I'm feeling this way because of such and such, or I'm going through this, and it's nothing like that, So that's why I'm saying like this episode in general should have a positive connotation behind it. And I'm talking in a calming voice right now, as we all know that I can get rowdy and get raspy and get loud if I wanted to. But it's currently 6 in the morning, and then like, who really got time and energy to do all that? Plus, another thing I'm starting to realize, or I realized, just from me also being a listener of other podcasts, I don't know, I don't really know a lot of other individual podcasts, but like the podcasts I watch, and they mainly sports podcasts. I don't like all the yelling at the same time, or just just like like just I don't want to hear all that screaming and yelling and stuff in my ear, about unnecessary stuff. So I try to keep in mind, um, like I like it's and I'm just sharing a lot of things that I thought about over the time, because I also try to keep in mind of the age groups that's listening and how how the content is, making it be a making the content be shareable and also be like comfortable to listen to, if you get what I'm saying. Like for instance, if you go back to certain episodes, you'll really just hear me cursing for literally like no reason. And when I play it back, I don't really like, even though I used to curse a lot, or I don't really curse a lot no more, but when I do curse, it's just like if it's not really a reason for it to be cursing, like it's a simple word that I can substitute it for, I'll do it. But like now I'm understanding, like when I listen to a lot of cursing just for no reason, it's just making me like frown my face a little bit, like not even frown my face, but like I wish y'all could see the face I was making. It's just like it made me just like not cringe, but like it really just gave me the feeling that like, bro, you don't really like it knocked your intelligence down a little bit, you know? And I've been preaching to people that everything is up top. It's starting the mental. So if my vocabulary and things of that nature is not up to par with who I am, then you're not really gonna you're not really gonna try to care about what I gotta say or nothing like that, because I can't give you whatever I'm trying to give you without profanity or anything like that, So yeah, but we going into um we're going into a upgrading field, and as I'm also upgrading the podcast. I mean, as I'm upgrading the podcast, I'm also upgrading in other aspects of life. So if you don't already, or if you haven't, subscribe to Godly Gaming. That's my gaming team channel, my team gaming channel. Um, like I said, we're gonna come out with more ways to connect with my audience, rather it's for the gaming, rather it's for the podcast, or just to be able to push out and promote new projects that we come up with, or that that we already have going on, and just got to put out there more, such things like my first podcast album, or things in that, or just putting episodes out there anyways, like pre-uploading episodes to new ears. um that's really, that's it. Another thing, I don't know if y'all really into this, but certain people, not certain people, some people have told me to like start a blog and a blog a little bit. And so I mean, like, I kind of do that here and there. So if you catch me on, if you got Tumblr, or if you blog a little bit, throw a comment down and we can see what it's talking about. I just started it. They say I had it 2 years ago, and I did, but like it's different now. It's like when I was 2 years ago when I first got into the blog, and it was just like just trying to be like a have fun and comedian and stuff like that. And I understand now, and then I understand like forcing false images of yourself and things of that nature really take away from the natural and the natural ability inside you. For instance, me trying to go off on this, not even facade, but like make it seem like I'm some type of comedian, or if I'm like just be doing things and to be funny, take away from the fact of I'm just naturally funny in other ways, rather than trying to actually make you laugh. But that's really it. I really just came to, let my voice be heard again, announce that we back and that we going through an upgrade. So in due time, be looking out for, subtle changes, because it's not all gonna happen at once. And it's gonna happen slowly but surely, and then it's gonna all come together in like one big episode when the intro done, when and that's why I'm saying, like, if you don't already follow the podcast on social medias, you might want to get ready to do that, because I can't say, like, I can't make no promises, but the next couple of things we might got coming up, like I said, over days, weeks, months, it's gonna be spectacular, and it's all gonna happen under the gentleman's solitude. So with that being said, I'd like to wrap this episode. We don't have to really keep going. Like I said, it was 6 in the morning. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever time you listening to this. And shit. Like, comment, subscribe, no matter what app you listen to this on, what media app you listen to this on. Whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, what else? That's really it. We everywhere, but them the only notable ones I know. So, with that being said, it's your host, Nas the Innovator. I'm gonna hang my suit up for another day. Hopefully, you're glad to have me back as much as I'm glad to be back for y'all, and for me as myself. But in due time, and remember these words: great things come to those who wait. So be patient, because even though you might not necessarily feel the impact of what the pod is doing for you, it's gonna slowly but surely start to come back to you. And I know, because we had a brief stint already where it was just like we was consistent and everybody was, it was flowing great, going well. We got to remember those things, because it's only gonna get better. You know, it's life is like basketball. It's in a game of runs. And sometimes you gotta know when to call a timeout and put yourself on the bench to then get your energy back and come back to the game. You feel me? And I'm gonna just leave it with that. Love y'all. We out, and peace.